let's spin it forward. I'm going to ask the NFL again, now that we have more information, now that Troy Aikman has come out and said they hired me because I have information that they don't have or can't get. Like, are we going to apply the Brady rules to Aikman? These are all fair questions because at some point there's going to be games. At some point it's going to be Dolphins-Bills on a Monday night. At some point he's going to show up at Bills practice. Is he allowed to go to Bills practice? Is he allowed to go to any practice? Is he allowed to go to practice for any team that's on the Dolphins schedule this year? Is he allowed to go into facilities? What kind of disclaimer are we going to get from ESPN? You know, they never say squat that the NFL now owns 10% of ESPN. It's not even a line at the bottom of the stories that they write about the NFL's current labor fight with the NFL Referees Association. It should be on every story dealing with league matters. I know people who say it should be on every story that ESPN publishes now, that the NFL owns 10% of ESPN. So what kind of disclaimers? Will there be a Dolphins logo on the screen every time they welcome us into the broadcast booth? You know, they do that at least once a week. We welcome you now to the broadcast booth, and Joe and Troy stand there, and Joe does that very well-timed look at the camera, and then he looks back at Troy, and then my son and I will count 1, 2, 3, and he looks back at the camera. I mean, it's like a bit every week that they do. Is there going to be a Dolphins logo on the screen there? Is there going to be a line that this guy's working for the Dolphins in an undefined role? I just think that at a time when fans are already suspicious of broadcasters and like, why does he hate my team? Why does he hate this team? Why does he hate this team? Well, we know of one team that Troy Aikman doesn't hate now. We know of one. Chris Collinsworth always says, you know, when he's asked, why do you hate this team or that team? I just do. Aikman's never going to be accused of hating the Dolphins now. And when the Dolphins are on Monday Night Football, it's going to create awkwardness, to say the least.
Well, it might do that. It might. And you know, yes, the fans always think the announcer. I saw that with my dad for years, where I'd be like, wait, you think he hates your team? I mean, all he does is talk good. But if you say one comment, they think, oh, gosh, he doesn't like our team. That's just what the fans hear. So that's what it is. But, you know, the other thing, too, is, I have a hard time, and I need to think about this more, and I probably should have done that before we start the show. But this can't be the first time this has happened in the NFL. And even before this, it's been going on. Like, you know, listen, Michael Irvin's part of the Cowboys, you know, whatever. He's getting paid. He's on payroll. He's been around the NFL network and doing jobs like that and whatever else. And so this is something that's gone on in the NFL. And I think with all the, like we talked about, just the crossing of lines and family history and how small the NFL world is, that, you know, information is available to these guys. And I think like a lot of the guys in the NFL just look at it and put it on themselves to go, no, okay, Troy Aikman's coming in today. We're going to be a little careful what we say. You know, yeah, we're in the AFC East. So we're not going to tell him. We're going to keep it a little dry. I mean, that's what he's going to. That's Troy, what. Or they might not let him in.
Saying, "Come on in, Troy. Come to practice. Come on in." I'll be Dolphins employee.
I know. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Right, because there is going to be some that are certainly a little more uptight about it. And there's always an aspect, especially if they're playing the Dolphins or something like that, to where then, yeah, you're going to really worry about it. Wait, Troy's here at practice. You know, oh, gosh, he's seeing our third down plays. You know, I'm a little paranoid. Is he going to say something? Yeah, that's going to be the first time the rubber hits the road there, and to see where this goes. But he's not going to have to deal with it, I don't think, with the Dolphins this year and being big games for ESPN at least and having that crossover a whole lot.
The point is he's now got a duty to provide that information. When he says, I have access to information they don't have or can't get, he didn't apply a qualifier to that. Yeah. That's the problem. Mm-hmm. That's what they're paying for. They want that information. So what's he going to give them? Anything he can get. That's why it's incumbent on the grown-ups in the room at 345 Park Avenue to put boundaries on what he's allowed to do. At a minimum, he should be barred from going into facilities and going to any practices, given that he has made it clear that he's got some role with the Dolphins. It puts him in a position where he wants to see the Dolphins be successful. He's getting paid to help them. He's getting information they don't have. That's enough for the NFL to say, all right, the Tom Brady rules apply to Troy Aikman. And maybe that's the end of it. And you're right about one thing.
Yeah.
Well, you're right about many things, but you're right about this. There have been, over the years, plenty of secret consulting agreements
yes,
that are clearly unethical because people are hiding it. Someone's getting paid by a team to be an operative on the side, on the sly, and no one knows about it. At least we know about Brady and Aikman.
Yeah.
At least it's out there in the open.
Yeah.
But that's the other side of it too,
No,
Chris.
you're totally right.
If we're going to be fine with it, out in the open, more people are going to do the secret under the table. Nobody knows who's working for what team.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to potentially become even more prevalent, even though we don't know about it because everybody involved keeps their mouth shut about it.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we could have more of these open and obvious relationships. On the other hand, we could have more of a team, giving somebody a little supplemental revenue stream.
Right.
And they're on call. They're on retainer. I mean, hey, well, what are you hearing about this? What are you hearing about that? The currency for the people who do what I do is more information. So every once in a while, like somebody will say, hey, what are you hearing about this? What are you hearing about that? It's part of the free flow back and forth. So you have a relationship with someone when it's time for them to give you something you need, when you want to run to Twitter 5 minutes before the announcement comes out and impress the world with your parlor trick that you have somebody in the building who handed it to you before they announced it. You could have these relationships where, and I'm not going to name names, but I mean, you could have a relationship where somebody's getting paid and you call them up and they're telling you everything they know.
Yeah.
They're telling you stuff that maybe they're holding back, that they're not going to put it on Twitter just yet. They're going to hold it back for 10 minutes. They're going to tell you about it. Like, it opens a universe for all sorts of nasty, underhanded stuff that I think has already been happening.
And that's what I was going to say.
We just don't know about it
exactly.
because people are keeping their mouths shut.
It definitely. There's no doubt. I've had a team tell me they'd pay me for, hey, would you do like extra like quarterback work and write up all these advanced reports, right? About 4 years ago, I had a team approach me and like, hey, we'll pay you this much money and we're going to check in with you and like break. And I was just like, I got enough on my plate. I don't know if I want to go there with that and do all that and be a part of that. And so I declined it. But like stuff like that has been going on forever. It has. There's no doubt. Ex-GMs, all right, who, we're out of the game. I'm on TV now, but, we don't know that they've been paid, to maybe evaluate the team in the offseason. And, hey, here's a little project. We're going to evaluate. We want you just to tell us, give us your 2 cents of how you think the team's being run, and is there anything you can – and there's a lot of that, I think, going on in the NFL more than people realize. And so that's where this is interesting because this one's in our face. It's a much bigger deal. It's Troy Aikman. It's ESPN. It's Tom Brady. He owns the Raiders, which I do think is a different dynamic than even being just on TV with ESPN. So, there's a lot there. And it is, for the NFL, it's usually very buttoned up and tight with certain things. They seem to be kind of just letting this one flow and kind of seeing where it goes before anything bad happens, or if anything bad happens, maybe it'll change.
In 25 years, I've had one inquiry from a team that was interested in exploring hiring me to be basically a glorified strategist where I know the CBA, I know all the rules, I know how to think in that way where how do we get the most out of this, how do we get the most out of that, not X's and O's, all the other stuff around the sport that becomes directly relevant to taking advantage of and avoiding being screwed by all the different rules that are out there, like conflicts of interest. Now, obviously, I would have had to shut it down. I would have walked away. I wouldn't have done both, and I'm not interested. I wasn't interested, and it got no farther than an initial feeler because my response was, I'm not interested. So that ended quickly, but so there's ways. And, hey, but if we're going to be allowed to double dip, if we're going to be allowed to have these arrangements, and if somebody wants to feather my nest with something more than chocolate eggs from the Easter Bunny, let's talk, baby.
Let's
and I'm kidding as I say all of that. I don't want to do it. I won't do it. I won't do it. I'm not going to do it because I think it's wrong.
I will do it. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it. I will do it.
By the way, Daniel Silman, Daniel, I apologize for not having your name on the tip of my tongue, but we will all be hearing Daniel Silman's name more often. He is now the guy. Stephen Ross has tapped out. Daniel Silman is the name to be mentioning when we talk about Dolphins ownership, and he was probably at the table when you went over to say hello.
He might have been.
You didn't realize who he was.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He might have been. I know.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What's your etiquette for? Because I'm assuming that you went lurching over to their table. What's your etiquette for how long you stand there when people are eating? Because I'm very concerned about somebody spraying spittle all over my food.
Totally.
It's like, let's just say hello and move on.
I went tactically. I saw this going on, right? And I had made eye contact with Jeff Halfley. And as I told you, I got a relationship with him. And, so and a few times was just like looking in there, and I was hanging at the bar with a few other friends of the NFL. And so I found a dead spot, and one of my friends and his wife knew Jeff Halfley. Again, back to how close the NFL is, to where I was like, come on. And I saw they weren't eating. It was like in between appetizer and the meal. So I said, come on. I go, there's, Jeff Halfley. And one of the wives was like, I love Jeff. I love his wife. So I was like, come on, let's go in there. And we went in there. And so I gave it the old, I lurched over them. I grabbed Troy. I told him how I think he's awesome and he's the best. And and did all that.
Did he get the Vulcan death grip?
Well, I didn't give him the Vulcan death grip. I don't know him quite like that. And have you seen Troy's hands? Troy's hands are from the Vulcans. I mean, they're like, they're unreal. So yeah, I go in there, have a few laughs, probably hung around for 2-3 minutes and then got out of their way. That was the etiquette.
Yeah, you don't realize how tall Troy Aikman is because Joe Buck's standing on a box next to him when they welcome us to the broadcast booth. I ran into Troy before one of the Super Bowls on Fox when he was still there, and it's like,
Troy's 6'4.5", and in his prime was probably 235 easily. Yeah, I mean and he's got giant hands. Anybody look up Troy Aikman throwing a football. His fingers are all. I mean, he engulfed the ball. That's why he could really throw it. But always enjoy being around Troy. Interested to see where this goes, and I definitely do think he's going to help out the Dolphins in a lot of big ways there.
And let me just be clear. I'm not criticizing Troy Aikman.
Yeah,
I'm not criticizing.
Right.
I think he did a great hey, I love John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Halfley. I love those guys.
Exactly.
I think the Dolphins
out of the park, right?
have reason to be optimistic about the future. Mm-hmm. This year, as Troy said, maybe a little rough, but they're laying the foundation for something that could be good. This is the NFL that has allowed this situation to exist. And I know that sometimes it may be hard to compartmentalize the two, and Troy may be thinking if he hears this, and who knows if he will, but he may be thinking, why is that asshole trying to blow up my spot here? It shouldn't, the spot shouldn't exist. The NFL should have clear, bright lines that prevent this from happening. That's all I'm saying. It started with Tom Brady. It's continuing with Troy Aikman. Chris Simms will be next. And who knows who else. Getting a little supplemental envelope from somebody somewhere who wants a little something.
Give me a little
from
cash
somebody
and
who's
some
in a
envelope.
position.
Look at you
Just
over
a little envelope.
Hey, forget about it. I'll take it. Let me know. Troy, if you need my help.
I shouldn't have said
don't
no
listen
when I
to
got
this
that phone
guy.
call.
I'll be here. I'll be here to help you if anybody needs my help.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.